Sailboats to Go How to Sail video series. This is Lesson 2, Making the Boat Go. Key topics will be sail angle and steering.
Hi, I'm Jim Luckett of Sailboats to Go, and this is Lesson 2 in our How to Sail video series. In this lesson, we're going to learn how to make the boat go, and we're going to be talking about steering a bit. So, how to make the boat go? Well, this is the wind. Okay, keep that in mind. The wind's coming at me like this. I'm going to be the sail for this. So, let this be the mast. I know it's a paddle, but think of it as a mast, okay? And think of me as a sail. All right. So I'm a sail and I'm just flapping in the wind like a flag on a flagpole, right? Until what? Until somebody starts pulling on a rope at my loose end, okay? There's my fastened end, the end that's at the mast, but somebody starts pulling on this rope, and now I'm turned a little bit crossways to the wind, and I start taking a nice tight curve here, and I'm not flapping so much. But whoa, still some flapping up here. That flapping up toward the front of the sail is called luffing. L-U-F-F-I-N-G. Important word, okay? So we want our sailor to pull the sail in until the luffing stops and no more. Don't make the mistake of thinking if some is good, more is better. That's not the case. You want to pull the sail in just enough to stop the luffing, and that's the perfect angle for the sail. Nice simple decision rule.
This sail is luffing. See it flapping in the wind? So we pull it in, now it's not luffing. A little later, we should test and see whether it's in too tight. So we'll let it out until it starts luffing, and then we'll pull it back in just enough to stop the luffing. Flapping at the rear edge of the sail can be ignored. That's not luffing. If a sail is too stiff to luff, then the best sail angle is found differently.
Now let's use our little sailboat model to explain about how to make the boat go and about sail angle. And we'll also talk about the rudder and the tiller. So first, let's get all our words together here. The rope from the sail down to the skipper's hand. Pretend that rope is long enough to reach his hand. That rope is called the sheet, and that's the rope that you use to control the sail angle. Over here we've got the rudder. The rudder blade is down in the water, and that actually does the work of turning the boat. And the handle of the rudder blade is called the tiller. That's the horizontal piece that the sailor grabs hold of, and that's how he controls the angle of the rudder blade in the water.
Step 1, point the boat at an angle to the wind that makes sailing possible.
You cannot make the sailboat go if you point the sailboat at any of these angles to the wind that I'm illustrating now. So any path relative to the wind that's within this arrowhead as I've cut it, that's an impossible path for the sailboat. If you need to get upwind, then you need to zigzag along angles to the wind that are possible for the sailboat to traverse.
Problem. Can't stop the luffing. No matter how much I pull in the sail, I've even got it right overhead. It won't stop luffing. Reason? The boat's angle to the wind is too small. Solution, turn the boat at a bigger angle to the wind. Now you're sailing just fine. Try to remember this. You're bound to encounter the situation.
So, how to make the sailboat go? Pick a nice easy angle to the wind for sailing and start up on that path. A nice easy angle would be 90 degrees to the wind, like I'm illustrating here, straight across the wind.
Once you are underway, you can turn to a smaller angle to the wind, but still greater than 45 degrees. How do I know my angle to the wind? It's easy. Just let the sail out. The sail, when it's not restrained by the sheet, will align itself with the wind and show you the angle. If the boat is 90 degrees to the wind, then the boat will also be 90 degrees to the sail if it's not restrained by the sheet. Now it's time to start going.
Our sailor starts pulling on the sheet. As he does, the boat will start moving forward. How much does he pull the sail in? Well, he watches right up here. Flapping up near the front of the sail is called luffing. He pulls it in just enough to stop the luffing and no more. And the boat moves forward. He's got to do something with the steering actually at the same time. And you might think that pointing the tiller straight ahead would be the thing to do at this point, and you'd be wrong. Sailboats are designed so that when you start pulling that sail in, if you don't do anything with the steering, the sailboat's going to tend to turn up into the wind. And if you don't do something pretty soon, it's going to get itself oriented at an impossible angle to the wind, and it's going to stop. So in addition to pulling in the sail, you've got to counteract that natural tendency to turn up into the wind by pulling the tiller a little bit away from the sail. See, the sail is here, and I've moved the tiller in this direction away from the sail. And that will actually make the boat go straight ahead. You get the right angle, the correct angle, so that you're just offsetting the boat's natural tendency to turn up into the wind. And you just do that by feel. You sense it turning a little bit into the wind, so you angle it a little bit more, or you sense it turning downwind, and you angle the tiller a little bit less. And as long as you're aware of that dynamic, pretty soon you'll learn to do that automatically.
Look closely. I think you'll see how my granddaughter has to angle the tiller away from the sail in order to go straight. Yeah, I think you can see that, right? She's zigzagging back and forth a bit, but when she does go straight, you can see the tiller is not pointing straight ahead. It's angled away from the sail. Now let's have her demonstrate the basic principles of steering with a rudder. Notice when she swings the tiller left, the boat turns to the right, and when she swings it to the right, the boat turns to the left. Left to turn right, and right to turn left. This is true as long as the boat is moving forward. If it were going backwards, it would be tiller left turns left, tiller right turns it right. The only time you're likely to find yourself going backwards in a sailboat is if you get stuck pointed directly into the wind and you're having trouble turning the boat to an angle where it's possible to start sailing again. If that happens, remember this part of this lesson about how the steering works when you're going backwards. Let's review what we've covered so far. Sail angle. Pull the sail in until luffing stops, and not more than that. Luffing is flapping of the sail, especially up near the mast. The sheet is the rope from the sail to your hand. When you pull the sheet in, the sail swings into the path of the wind, harnessing its power and transmitting it to the boat. Steering. The rudder has two parts. The blade is in the water, and the tiller is the handle you hold. When going forward, tiller to the left steers right, tiller to the right steers left. In the rare circumstance where the boat is going backwards, tiller to the right steers right, tiller to the left steers left. To make the boat go, point the boat at a wide angle to the wind direction, at least to start up. Then pull in the sail and angle the tiller away from the sail. This will get you going forward. Do not try to sail at less than a 45-degree angle to the wind. You can let the sail out briefly to show yourself the wind direction. A loose sail is free to align itself with the wind. The result is the angle of that loose sail to the boat shows you the angle of the wind to the boat, because they're the same. If sailing to an upwind destination, you may need to follow a zigzag path. The angle of each zig and zag must be greater than 45 degrees to the wind. If you find the sail won't stop luffing even when pulled in over the boat, then you must turn the boat at a greater angle to the wind. Your problem is that you're pointed at an angle to the wind that is too small for sailing. That completes our little review. Now let's get back to steering, and I want to talk about turning upwind and turning downwind. That's sometimes more useful to think about than left and right. If you're moving forward, putting the tiller toward the sail will turn the boat upwind. Probably the sail will start luffing. Tiller away from the sail turns the boat downwind if you're moving forward. What's the significance of that? If you turn the boat up into the wind, sail will probably start luffing if you don't pull it in. And if you keep turning that way, you'll stop. And if you turn the boat downwind, if the sail has been luffing, it'll stop luffing, and you'll probably pick up speed. In slow-mo, tiller away from the sail, boat turns downwind, sail gets really tight and filled with wind, and boat picks up speed. Then tiller toward the sail, boat turns up into the wind. Pretty soon the sail is not tight anymore, it's flapping, luffing. Boat loses speed, and then tiller back away from the sail, and this luffing stops, and the boat picks up speed again. And why is Granddad so relaxed and unworried? Well, I'm holding the sheet. I know that if we start to tip over, I can just let go of that sheet and we won't tip over. See, there's two ways to take all the power out of a sail and stop the excitement of the boat leaning over and zooming along. One way I just mentioned, let go of the sheet. Remember, the sheet is that rope that she's got in her hand now, and that's pulling the sail in, angling it into the wind stream, and that's what makes it generate power. It's also what makes it lean the boat over. And if things got too hairy, might tip the boat over. So let go of that sheet and the excitement stops. Now the other way would be by steering. If you steer up into the wind, and watch, pretty soon you're going to see her just push that tiller toward the sail. I'm not even sure if she meant to, but look what happens. There she goes. Okay, she pushed it toward the sail, and the sail just comes into us and starts flapping and no longer generating power. All the excitement stops and we're going to be dead in the water. So remember those two ways to put the brakes on. So back to our model sailboat and our little sailor. And we've got the sail angle right, and we got the rudder set right, and he's sailing along. Can he just set it and forget it? And that's all there is to it until he wants to turn? Nope. The wind direction is not going to stay constant.
So let's say Mother Nature gets mean to him and moves the wind direction around like this. so that it's opposing his direction of travel. We call that an unfavorable wind shift. The sail will start luffing. Even though he didn't move the sail angle relative to the boat, the sail angle relative to the wind has changed because the wind direction changed. He's got to pull in the sail to stop the luffing. Suppose the wind had shifted this way. So Mother Nature smiled on him and said, "Oh, you want to go that way? I'll give you a wind that will point more that way." In that case, now he's got the sail pulled in too tight because he could let it out without it luffing. And if he's a smart sailor, he will realize that and he'll let the sail out when he gets a favorable wind shift like that, and his boat will go even faster than it was. So, unfavorable wind shift, sail will start luffing, pull it in. Favorable wind shift, now your sail is in tighter than it needs to be, let it out. Can I perhaps confuse you a little bit more? The sailor has another option for reacting to wind shifts. He could leave the sail at the same angle to the boat as it was before the wind shift. But when the wind shifts unfavorably, he can turn the boat downwind, and that will stop the luffing. So if he sees his sail luffing because of a wind shift, he pulls the tiller away from the sail. That turns the boat more in the downwind direction, and then he restores his former tiller angle, and the boat sails along without luffing, but now on a new course. And the same principle applies if he gets a favorable wind shift. He could leave the sail at the same angle as before, push the tiller toward the sail momentarily to turn the boat in the upwind direction, and then once he sees the sail start to luff, bring it back a little bit, and he can sail off without having to change his sail angle. What he's done is just maintain the same angle of the boat to the wind. When the wind shifted favorably, he turned upwind. When the wind shifted unfavorably, he turned downwind.
Let's boil it down. The sail is happy when it's not luffing, but it's almost luffing. It's sad when it's luffing, it's sad when it's in too tight. Wind shifts make the sail sad. We have to cheer it up again. So, if you see it luffing, make it happy again by pulling it in until the luffing stops, or you could turn a little more downwind to stop the luffing. But the silent suffering of an uptight sail can only be revealed by letting the sail out a bit and observing. When I let it out, did it luff? If so, it was happy. Return it to its former position. But when I let it out, if it doesn't luff, then I know it was in too tight. It was suffering silently. I have to relieve that anguish by letting it stay out or by turning upwind slightly, and then I can pull it back in. Remember, a happy sail is near luffing but not luffing. Now for a final review by me acting it out. You can do the same to practice this in your living room.
Now let me act out the basics of starting up your sailboat and getting the right sail angle and the interaction between the angle of the tiller and the angle of the sail, going over the basic points. So I want you to think of me as sitting on a sailboat. The sail is going to be on this side. The wind is coming at me from this side over here. Okay, got the picture? I got my sheet, and as I start this explanation, the sheet is slack. I'm not pulling it in at all. All right, now I want to start going. So I start pulling in the sail, and I'm watching the fabric up near the mast, and I pull in the sail until that fabric stops flapping up near the mast. And as I do that, my tiller, I'm going to angle the tiller a little bit away from the sail. So I'm pulling the sail in, and at the same time I'm angling the tiller just a little away from the sail. I want to make sure that as the boat starts up, it goes straight. And I know that the boat has a tendency to turn up into the wind, and so I'm ready to correct for that. So I pull in the sail, and I angle my tiller a little bit away from the sail, and the boat hopefully goes straight ahead.
So we're underway. Now, what if I decide to turn?
If I decide to turn somewhat upwind, so I move the tiller toward the sail for a moment and the boat turns, I know that that's going to cause the sail to start luffing, and so I pull the sail in some at the same time as I'm making that turn. And if at some other time I want to turn downwind, so I'm going to pull the tiller away from the sail more and the boat's going to turn that way, well, I know that that's going to require me to let the sail out in order to find that perfect angle for the sail with the boat now pointed more downwind. And so I'll let the sail out and I'll let it luff just a little bit, and then I'll pull it back in just enough to stop the luffing. And then as I'm sailing along, I'll keep glancing up at the sail, and if I see it start luffing, I'll know that Mother Nature has just shifted the wind a little bit against my direction of travel. That's an unfavorable wind shift, and that requires me to pull the sail in a bit. And I'll also be testing from time to time at frequent intervals to see if I can let the sail out without causing luffing. And if I can, I'll do that, because I want the sail to be out as far as it can be without luffing.
So that's the end of lesson 2. I hope you've enjoyed it. And remember, I know you can't retain all these details perfectly, but you've been exposed to them now, and when you get out on the water and you're figuring it out and developing some muscle memory, it'll come back to you. So happy sailing, and see you on lesson 3.